Before the first rifle cracked across no man's land, the weather had already chosen its side. World War I was a war of trenches, mud, frost and flood, where the elements killed as efficiently as any machine gun, and where the soldier who understood his environment was the soldier most likely to survive. This is the story of battles decided by rain and cold, and of the men who learned to read the sky, work with the earth, and turn nature's cruelty into their most unlikely ally. The mud that swallowed armies. Imagine standing shin-deep in clay-thick water that smells of rotten gunpowder. That was the Western Front. The Battle of Passchendaele in 1917 is the defining testament to this truth. British commanders launched an offensive in Flanders as relentless rains transformed the battlefield into a quagmire. Shell craters became ponds. Men and horses drowned not from enemy fire, but from exhaustion and submersion in liquid mud. The artillery bombardment had, with terrible irony, destroyed ancient drainage systems beneath the fields. Survivors developed an intimate relationship with the ground. They constructed duckboard paths across the mud, not as luxury, but as lifeline. They packed sandbags with practiced speed, knowing a well-reinforced trench wall could hold back not just bullets, but the slow collapse of waterlogged earth. Reading the sky to stay alive. World War I soldiers quickly learned that weather was intelligence. A low-pressure front meant rain within hours, flooded sections, cancelled patrols. Men who had been farmers or fishermen became invaluable. They could smell frost coming in ways a city-born officer never could. Frost, paradoxically, was sometimes welcomed. Frozen ground was firm ground, but bitter cold brought its own brutality. Soldiers rubbed animal fat onto exposed skin and stuffed boots with straw or dried grass. The same insulation principles indigenous peoples had refined over centuries. They kept moving, rotating sentries every 30 minutes because stillness in deep cold was a death sentence dressed as rest. Building shelter from nothing. World War I. Shelter building was born of desperation and refined through survival. Early shell scrapes evolved into sophisticated underground architecture. German dugouts extended 6 to 9 meters below the surface, fitted with wooden bunks and drainage channels. Above ground, soldiers constructed bivouacs from corrugated iron, rubber ground sheets, and mud bricks dried when the sun briefly appeared. The principle was always timeless: dead airspace for insulation, waterproofing outside, elevation from the ground. Any modern bushcrafter would recognize it immediately. Water, food, and the art of scarcity. Clean drinking water was among the most precious resources on the front. Shell craters pooled with water, carrying typhoid and cholera. Soldiers learned that any water drawn near the line required chemical purification tablets, one of the earliest mass applications of water sterilization in military history. When supply lines broke, they fell back on hardtack biscuits and tinned bully beef. The resourceful supplemented this with whatever the land offered: dandelion leaves, sorrel, nettles, foraging under the most extreme circumstances imaginable. Morale, hygiene, and the will to endure. Trench foot affected hundreds of thousands. Treatment was grimly simple: remove boots, dry the feet, rub with whale oil. Units enforcing this rotation had dramatically lower casualty rates. Small rituals preserved morale beyond any tactical manual. The shared brewing of tea, the trading of tobacco, the maintenance of a regimental joke. These were the invisible infrastructure of psychological survival. Officers who understood this led units that held together when others collapsed. What the trenches still teach us. The men of the First World War were dragged into incomprehensible hostility and forced to learn fast. The weather that swallowed armies did not ultimately determine who survived. The men who endured were those who observed, adapted, and refused to be passive. Know your environment before it surprises you. Build your shelter before the rain. Treat your water before you drink it. Keep your feet dry, your fire small, and your people close. These are not historical curiosities. They are alive in every storm and every moment the world reminds you it was never fully tamed. If this episode opened something in you, subscribe to Fieldcraft Chronicles right now and share this video with someone who values self-reliance and the real stories behind human endurance. The algorithm doesn't find these people. You do. So, pass it on.